Hi there, friends. This is Praying Medic, and it is time for another QAnon update. Today's update is going to cover posts that Q put out on January 21st, 2018. Here is a link if you need it. If you'd like to go to Q's page and check them out, it's 8ch.net/Great Awakening. You can go there and check and see if Q has posted any new updates. So, we're going to get started. This first post by Q, if you go to the website, it's actually incomplete. So there's all this text, and at the bottom there is a click here to view the full text. We're going to do that. This is the full text, and there's a lot of information here. So I'm going to break this down into sections, and we'll go at it a little bit by bit. When you're trying to unravel the mysteries that Q has given us, it is very important to make your breaks in the information at the right place. If you don't make your breaks at the right place, you're going to inadvertently put some things together with other things that don't actually belong there. Now, this first section, I'll click on this. I believe that the natural break should be made at the red line. Everything above the red line has to do with Jeff Sessions. Everything below the red line has to do with a 16-year plan to destroy America. So we're going to talk about Jeff Sessions first. So in this section, Q asks a question. In light of new information coming out, including the memo from the House Select Intelligence Committee that was written by Devin Nunes, is Jeff Sessions going to be given control of the Trump-Russia investigation? Why would Sessions, who has recused himself from the election investigation, be given control? That just seems illogical to a lot of people, so we're going to go through this one a little bit. So I'll click on this and we'll take a closer look at it. Will Sessions drop the hammer? 1 of 22. We have a £. Memo shifts narrative. Memo reinstates Sessions' authority, Ray. Russia, all. Memo factually demonstrates collusion at the highest levels. Memo factually demonstrates Hussein admin weaponized intel community to ensure D victory, brackets plus insurance. Memo factually demonstrates knowledgeably false intel provided to FISA judges to obtain warrants. They never thought you would lose. So if you have been following the information about this memo, Q is telling us what this memo is going to do. When the memo comes out, it's going to shift the narrative. One of the things I think is going to happen is there's been a lot of discussion about the Steele dossier and whether it is was put together by Christopher Steele, whether it was influenced by Russians. I think the narrative is going to shift away from the Steele dossier as a legitimate reason for the Mueller investigation. The narrative will now shift to, oh gosh, it looks like people in the highest levels of the Department of Justice and FBI colluded to try to take down Trump before he was even elected. That is the narrative that is going to come out as a result of the memo. The memo demonstrates that the Obama administration weaponized the intelligence community as a way to guarantee a Democrat victory in the election and in the event that Trump did get elected. The insurance policy seems to be a way that they would put Trump into an investigation and hope that he would either obstruct justice or lie to the FBI. They were going to do something to impeach him if he won the election. That was, I believe, is the insurance policy. And one of the most damaging things that we think is going to come out in the memo is that the FBI knowingly gave FISA judges false intelligence. If you knowingly provide false intelligence to a federal judge, that is a felony. So there are probably going to be some people arrested in the DOJ and the FBI. Who are the people that we're talking about who could potentially be taken down by the memo? Well, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Sally Yates, Loretta Lynch, James Baker, and there are many others. Head of National Security Division, Carlin, who resigned right before the election, he is probably implicated as well. I would imagine Bill Priestap, who is head of counterintelligence at the FBI. These people all stand to lose a lot when that memo comes out. Another thing that Q is hinting at is the possibility that when the memo comes out and this information is released, it may implicate members of Robert Mueller's investigative team. These would be people like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. I believe that when this memo comes out, it is probably going to demonstrate that Mueller's investigation was set up long before the election, that it was premeditated. And when that is proven, I think the Mueller investigation will effectively be gone. And Sarah Carter's report, she was given information from an insider who said, the sources say the report is explosive, stating they would not be surprised if it leads to the end of the Mueller investigation. So we'll see how that goes. The memo will be coming out soon. So if Mueller's investigation is proven to be a premeditated plot to steal the election and delegitimize Trump's presidency, then it's not going to continue. The investigation and the plot to get Sessions to recuse himself was going to be exposed, and then Sessions could rightly assume control of the investigation into the election. People in the Obama administration did a lot of illegal and unethical things. I think that's what we're going to find out. They never expected to have to answer for them because they never thought Hillary would lose. Now they're trying to cover their tracks, delete files, deny guilt, but it's probably too late. Here is one example of that. We just learned today that the FBI is saying it lost 5 months worth of text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. These are employees of the FBI. When you work for one of the intelligence agencies and you have a security clearance, the agency is essentially required to monitor you and gather all of your private communications. That's true for anyone who has a security clearance. That rule came out after what happened with Edward Snowden and the NSA. So the FBI is saying they lost 5 months worth of messages between two agents who were working on the Mueller team. How convenient. Well, we believe that the NSA probably has them, and it's probably true that the FBI actually has them. They just don't want to produce them. So the next section, Q discloses a 16-year plan to destroy America. 8 years under Obama and 8 years under Hillary. And remember, again, the goal of globalism is to eradicate international borders, creating a borderless global community. And that plan, if they're going to bring it to pass, requires the destruction of individual nation states. In order to have a global community, you have to take away national sovereignty, you have to strip countries of their national identity, you have to bring in people from other countries, and over time, the nations would hopefully lose their national sense of identity. And this is what's happening in Germany, in France, in Sweden. If you look at what's happening in Europe, if you look carefully at what's happening with the migrants who are coming in from the Middle East and Africa, you can project where this is headed. And this is the plan of the globalists. So let's get into the details here. The 16-year plan to destroy America. Hussein, brackets 8, install rogue_ops, leak CINTEL/Mill assets, cut funding to Mill, command away from generals, launch good guy takedown, internal remove, Valerie Jarrett sniffer, SAP sell-off. So this is fairly self-explanatory. You don't have to be a great cryptologist to understand what Q is saying here. There's a 16-year plan to destroy America. Hussein is the middle name of Obama, so Q always refers to Obama by Hussein. He would take the first 8 years. They would install rogue operatives inside the intelligence community and the military. They would leak classified intelligence and military assets. The goal of that was to weaken and to eventually destroy the military. They would cut funding to the military, take command away from generals, launch a good guy takedown. Is that why they went after Mike Flynn? Remove from within anyone who's patriot, anyone who has a strong sense of national identity. Valerie Jarrett was a sniffer, and SAP sell-offs. Okay, command away from generals. One of the interesting things, if you look back at policies with respect to the military under President Obama, look at the rules of engagement. Soldiers often complained that the rules of engagement that were put upon them under the Obama administration gave them an unfair disadvantage. And if you think about why the Obama administration would want to tie one hand behind the back of our soldiers and give the enemy an advantage, it's because they wanted to weaken the military. Everything that I see looking at the Obama administration and the way they dealt with the military was designed to undermine their ability to do the job. And you can tell that President Obama had very little respect for the military. Remember the famous coffee cup salute? He had contempt for the military, and now we're finding out it wasn't just contempt, that his plan was to weaken and ultimately destroy the power of the military. All right, so let's talk about the SAP sell-off. This has always made me scratch my head. I have a little bit of familiarity with this. In July of 2016, an anonymous FBI agent showed up on 4chan and did something similar to what Q is doing now. He gave people clues about Hillary. He really was pointing people toward the Clinton Foundation, having them investigate what they could find out about the Clinton Foundation, was warning people about things that they knew inside the government. And this anonymous FBI agent answered questions. And one of the things that the agent talked about was the fact that Hillary had obtained SAPs and she had them on her unsecured server. Here is a link to a Business Insider article that talks all about some of the emails on Clinton's private server were reportedly even more classified than top secret. Those are SAPs. So if you were wondering if this is just conspiracy theory stuff, no, Business Insider is pretty legit. And they wrote this article about SAPs found on Hillary's server. So what is that all about? Well, let me show you this. These are posts from the anonymous FBI agent on 4chan. And I'm just going to read this to you. The real point of interest is the Clinton Foundation, not the email server. We received the server from Benghazi. Then from the server, we found data on the Clinton Foundation. Then we realized the situation is much worse than previously thought. This is why the FBI agent was pointing people to go research the Clinton Foundation, because FBI found a lot of dirt about the Clinton Foundation, pay for play, money they were receiving from other countries. So the anonymous FBI agent was telling people, look, go check out the Clinton Foundation, learn what you can. Continuing. The anonymous FBI agent said she had SAP-level programs on her server, which, if made public, would literally cause an uprising and possibly foreign declarations of war. An SAP is an intelligence program classified above top secret. They're held on closed servers at secret locations. The only way to get one is if you're specifically read onto a program, you have a need to know, and then you must physically go to the location, pass through several layers of security to even look at the program. A good example in non-classified terms would be the locations and operations of our intelligence operatives around the globe or our missile silo locations. So the agent continues. All I can tell you about the SAPs is Hillary had them. She did not have proper authority to have them. They were leaked to her by someone, and she did sell them to overseas donors. Possessing them alone makes her guilty of treason. So this is information that was posted on 4chan almost 2 years ago by an anonymous FBI agent. And today we're getting confirmation from Q that the same thing is going on. Q says, yep, Hillary was selling SAPs. And why was Hillary selling SAPs? I could never understand that. Was it just about the money? Would you take a risk of selling the most top secret military intelligence just to get money? Well, Q says it was the money and the desire to undermine and destroy the military. Remember, how many times has the president said in the last week that the Schumer shutdown is all about hurting the military? These people are determined to undermine and destroy the military in every way possible. So in the next section, Q continues laying out the plan to destroy the military. I'll click on this and just read this. Snowden, open source, PRISM, key score, catastrophic to U.S. Mill versus bad actors, WW, plus clowns, minus no such agency. Target, weakened conservative base, IRS, MSM, open border, flood illegals, DWIN, ISIS, MS-13, fund, install, fear, targeting removal, domestic assets, etc. Blind Eye, NK, nuke build. Class 123, Blind Eye, Iran, fund and supply. So let's go through this. Q is suggesting that the leaks by Edward Snowden about the PRISM program that the NSA had was designed to undermine military intelligence. The NSA is under the Defense Department, which is why an Admiral Rogers, is the head of the NSA. The leak reduced the NSA's ability to identify the bad guys like MS-13 and ISIS. Now, when Q says here that it's catastrophic to the military and helpful to bad actors worldwide, WW. It is also a plus for the clowns. It helps the CIA, and it is a minus for the NSA. And what Q, I think, is saying here is all of this was staged. It was all designed to help. It was all designed to undermine the military and increase the ability of the CIA to run its operation. We'll talk more about that in a second. I've talked about this in previous videos, but it's worth mentioning again. There is a war going on, and it's been going on for a long time, between the Defense Intelligence Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency. The CIA is a civilian agency. CIA is not part of the military. The CIA and the DIA compete for funding, compete for resources, and they have competing agendas. So Obama and Hillary's plan was to decrease the effectiveness of the military intelligence and give more power to the CIA. John Brennan's development of the supercomputer, the Hammer, was their attempt to gain superiority over the NSA. And here is a link to a website, theamericanreport.org, the whistleblower tapes. Trump was wiretapped a zillion times. Here is the page. This is a report on Brennan and Clapper's, how they developed the Hammer, the supercomputer that they have, which is intended to compete with the NSA's intelligence gathering, because the goal for Obama and Hillary was sabotage the NSA, decrease their effectiveness, and work more and more with the CIA, give them more money, give them more power, because the CIA was more in line with what they wanted to do. Another step was weakening the GOP base by harassing them through the IRS. We know that the scandals came out of the IRS, that they admitted that they were targeting conservatives for harassment. Open borders were the open borders are intended to help increase Democrat voter numbers, bring in MS-13 and ISIS. They create chaos, civil unrest, and they help destroy the country. Turning a blind eye to North Korea's development of nuclear weapons and chemical weapons was a strategic move. When President Obama said his policy with North Korea was strategic patience, it was strategic, all right. not strategic in the way that you think. The strategy was to allow North Korea and Iran to build weapons of mass destruction. This would create war. It would create chaos. It would create more turmoil. It would create a lot more refugees, people who could be trafficked. It would destabilize international borders and eventually, hopefully, lead to the removal of international borders, because that is what globalism is all about. For me, it's a little disturbing to find out that President Obama was actually enabling North Korea and Iran to develop weapons of mass destruction. Q also mentions the funding of Iran. So the $1.7 billion that we sent to Iran, well, why did that money go there? Well, President Obama said it went there because Iran had showed compliance with the sanctions. A more likely explanation, I think, is that we sent them money to help them build their nuclear weapons program. I would like to clear up a couple of items before I move on. This post begins with the phrase, "Will Sessions drop the hammer?" 1 of 22. And I have not been comfortable trying to interpret what 1 of 22 means. Other people have tried to interpret it. I haven't felt comfortable doing that until now. But now that I see 1 of 22 used in the context of will Sessions drop the hammer, and then there's a discussion about the memo and the investigations inside the DOJ and the FBI. I think 1 of 22 probably means that we are looking at 1 of 22 investigations that are currently open that have a bearing on the events that Q is telling us about. And previous posts also make reference to investigations in the FBI and DOJ. So what are the other investigations? Well, things like the Clinton Foundation, things like Uranium One. They have reopened the investigation into Hillary's email server. They are currently investigating James Comey and the role that he played in the investigation and whether he made inappropriate decisions during the election. There are many people and many things that are being investigated right now by the DOJ, and I suspect the 1 of 22 is a way that Q is telling you, hey, look, I'm going to give you information about 1 of these 22 investigations that are currently open. But that is just my theory, subject to change. Also, class 123. Some people have offered interpretations for these entries. I've seen some plausible explanations, but when you get to other things like class 35 through 49, those explanations don't really explain very well. So at this point, I am not going to try to tell you what these entries mean. I don't know what they mean. And it's not really all that important to me to decode everything in a Q post. We're not solving a crossword puzzle. You don't have to have all of the boxes filled in. You don't have to have all the right words and all the right terms. You can get a lot of good, useful information just by looking at the entries that you do understand. You can just glaze over the ones that you don't understand. It's not that important to understand everything. All right, moving on. So we're going to continue with Obama's 8 years. The administration continues to turn a blind eye to things that they shouldn't. When you see here, blind eye Iran fund and supply. So Obama was turning a blind eye to what Iran was doing, pretending it wasn't happening. We were funding them, we were supplying them with uranium and probably technology. We were also turning a blind eye to something else we shouldn't have. That's class 23 through 41. I don't know what that is, but it's something that our administration was turning a blind eye to. Stage SC, brackets AS, brackets 187, U1, fund supply, Iran, NK, brackets plus reduce U.S. capacity, kill NSA, prevent space domination, allow bad actors to take down, Milsats, WW, secure comms, install WMDs, risk of EMP space origination, or ORIG, risk of EMP space ORIG, helpless, class 1 through 99. So what does this mean? Well, not too hard to figure out part of this. As I said before, turning a blind eye to what Iran is doing with their weapons program, help fund them, help supply them. Turning a blind eye to something else. Stage SC, brackets AS 187. All right, let's go to that one. Next one. So 187 is the California Penal Code for homicide. And I believe this is a reference SC, Supreme Court. 187, California Penal Code for homicide. Which Supreme Court judge was murdered? 187. Well, that would be A.S. Antonin Scalia. So if you think it's just a tinfoil hat conspiracy that Scalia was murdered, this is a link to a CNN article. And they said, Scalia's unexamined death points to a problem. Scalia was, his death, they did not do an autopsy. He died under mysterious causes. He had just left the White House a few days earlier. He had met with President Obama, flew down to Texas, was staying at a ranch, and was found dead one morning. Was not terminally ill, had not been sick, and yet they did not do an autopsy. So, death by mysterious causes, and Q is suggesting, yes, he was indeed murdered. The Uranium-1 transfer funded and supplied Iran and North Korea's nuclear weapons program and depleted supplies for the U.S. Have you thought about that angle? So Russia takes control of the Canadian company Uranium-1, which has a pretty large share of uranium rights in North America. Russia takes control of it. We start shipping uranium to Russia, they enrich it, and they turn around and sell it to Iran and North Korea. So yes, our uranium was going to Iran and North Korea. The money was helping fund their weapons development. And at the same time, since we don't have control of that uranium, we have to purchase uranium from outside sources, and it depletes our own supplies. This was a brilliant strategy. A sick strategy, but it was pretty brilliant. All right, next one. Obama's neglect of NASA was strategic. It would allow for our military to be rendered ineffective, allow bad guys to take down our satellites, and put in orbit weapons of mass destruction, including electromagnetic pulse weapons. I knew that Obama had neglected NASA. I didn't know that there was a strategic reason behind it. All right, so what did Obama do? He took most of this emphasis on space exploration and put it in the hands of Elon Musk and SpaceX. Because if you privatize space exploration, it's not subject to government audit, it's not subject to government oversight. You can do whatever you want with that. You can get the CIA involved, and the CIA can put all their things, their weapons in space, and no one's really going to know what's happening. And I find it interesting that President Trump has very quickly re-energized NASA, and he has committed himself to making sure that NASA gains preeminence again like it was designed to. Speaking of EMPs, one report estimated that an EMP attack in the U.S. could kill 90% of our population in 1 year. Talk about population control. If you pay attention to Agenda 21 and what the United Nations is trying to do with the population, one quick way to reduce population would be to do an EMP attack. Thankfully, President Trump is taking action. Trump has moved forward, and he is having our power grids protected from EMP attacks. He'll be the first president to do that. Okay, so after looking at what Obama's role was, we're now going to look at what Hillary's role was going to be. I will look at this, and we can check this out. So Class 1 through 99, HRC 8, WW3, Death and Weapons, Real and War Fake and Controlled, brackets population growth, control, pocket billions, eliminate final rogue ops within government and military, kill economies, starve, need, and slave, open borders, revised constitution, ban sale of firearms, Second Amendment removal, install on-team SC, justices, legal wins, ACR. All right, so what does all this mean? Well, not too hard to decode, but we're going to go into this. So HRC obviously is Hillary. She has 8 years. She would bring about World War III. There would be massive death and destruction, weapons of mass destruction, real and fake wars, population control, pocket billions of dollars in the process. They would eliminate any patriots and any strong nationalistic people in the government and military. They would supplant them with their own operatives. They would crash the economy. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. What a lot of people don't understand about George Soros is that the danger George Soros presents to our civilization is that he is an economic terrorist. Soros has at his disposal billions of dollars, and he has in the past wagered that money on the markets, and he has crashed economies. He will literally crash other nations' currencies. He is wanted in Hungary because he is considered an economic terrorist. And that is what globalists want to do. They want to crash economies. What do you think they're doing in Germany and France and the UK right now? Bringing in all the migrants from Africa and the Middle East. This is an intentional attempt to crash the economy of Europe. You crash the economy, you kill capitalism, and you bring in your own plan, and it's not a good plan. So crashing economies is all a part of the globalist agenda. Open borders, changing the Constitution. You get enough Supreme Court justices removed and replaced, you can repeal the Second Amendment. That is one of the end games. And speaking of repealing the Second Amendment, do you think it is a coincidence that every time there is a mass shooting at a school, at a shopping mall, any place, the first thing that happens after a mass shooting is Democrats get on their microphones and start saying, we need to have a talk about common sense gun control. Every single time. Didn't matter where it was, the Pulse nightclub, San Bernardino, every shooting, as soon as it happened, we need to have a talk about gun control. We need to limit magazine capacities. This year now in California, it is illegal to buy ammunition across state lines. You can only buy ammunition in state. They're chipping away little by little at gun rights, and their goal is eventually to repeal the Second Amendment. Because if you take the weapons away from your citizens, you can control them, turn them into slaves, and they then serve you, rather than the government serving the people. All right, next steps. All right, this is the next part of the post. Install on-team Supreme Court justices, legal wins across spectrum of challengers, AS, Anthony Scalia, 187. So I guess their philosophy is if you need to kill a few Supreme Court justices, it's all for a good cause. Removal of Electoral College, popular vote, easier manipulation, illegal votes, and George Soros machines. By the way, many of the voting machines in the United States right now are produced by companies that are owned by George Soros. So if you think there isn't election rigging going on, you are incorrect. Soros controls all that stuff because controlling the votes is a major issue for globalists and Democrats. Limit and remove funding of military, closure of U.S. military installations worldwide. The Germany Air Force Base would be first. Destruction of opposing mainstream media and other news outlets, censoring conservative news outlets and trying to destroy them. Class 1 through 59, pure evil. Certainly looks that way. All right, this is the next post. Click on it. Narrative Intercept, 4 a.m. Sessions, Nunes, Russian ops. Repub, distortion of facts to remove Mueller, POTUS free pass. All right, don't be confused by this particular part of the post. What this post is saying is that this is what the Democrats will accuse the Republicans of doing. They're going to accuse Sessions and Nunes of being Russian operatives. They're going to say that Republicans are distorting the facts, and because they want to remove Mueller and give POTUS a free pass. This is interesting because, when you listen to CNN and you listen to a lot of other cable news stations, you listen to when they interview people, they're always asking, do you think Mueller's going to be removed? Are they going to get rid of Mueller? Listen to the daily press briefings with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They're always asking, is Trump going to fire Mueller? Is Trump going to fire Mueller? That is one thing that the mainstream media and the left, they want. They want Trump or someone to fire Mueller so that they can accuse Trump of giving himself a free pass. Saturday Night Massacre. You get rid of the special counsel, it proves that you're a tyrant. That is what they want. That is why I have, for a long time, been completely, absolutely resistant to the idea of Mueller being fired. It's exactly what they want. Let Mueller do his job. His team is being exposed anyway, and the investigation is going to fall apart. And Trump has nothing to worry about. So firing Mueller really is helping the Democrat narrative. And people who are screaming for Mueller to be fired, I wish they would be quiet. All right, so in this one, Q tells us the real reason for the Schumer shutdown. And I believe he indicates that they intercepted a message in 2013 from Hillary that outlined their plan. The reason for the shutdown is a distraction, change the news cycle, weaken military assets. Trump has told us repeatedly the shutdown is about weakening the military, increasing illegal votes. Black voters are abandoning the Dems. Keep them starved, keep them blind, keep them stupid. Hillary, March 13th, 2013, intercepted message. The Great Awakening. Fight, fight, fight. Q. This is a new post from Q, a separate post from the previous one that I broke into sections. And this is a warning to Silicon Valley CEOs and mainstream media bosses. Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, Eric Schmidt, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Steve Huffman, Reddit, and the mainstream media. Do you know that we know? Do you know that we see all? Do you know that we hear all? Fear the storm. Nobody playing the game gets a free pass. Nobody. Q. All right, so this is Q telling mainstream media in Silicon Valley, the storm is coming, and the storm is coming for them, and if they think they're going to get away with it, they have another thing coming. So this was posted on the 21st of January, Sunday, 12:25. This post has already been confirmed, I believe. Let me show you. So Thomas Paine tweeted out January 21st, 9 o'clock at night. Big intel meeting tonight. Trump running the show. Many ABC brass under Obama are lawyering up now. Their current bosses won't cover for them. They are dangling in the wind. So what does this mean? So Trump evidently had an intelligence meeting last night. He was running the show, and he is going after the mainstream media. Are there going to be lawsuits because they acquired classified information? Remember, last week, cops went in and were photographing the servers at Newsweek magazine. ABC brass who were former workers under Obama are getting lawyers because they are now afraid that Trump is coming after them. You're going to see, I believe, this week, some serious pressure on the mainstream media. Their new bosses are not going to cover for them. So I think we have confirmation that Q is probably got some intel that we don't know about. All right, this is another post by Q. Just a little encouragement. Shot heard around the world is a reference to the beginning of the war. Great Awakening, a week to remember, Q. Now, if you're asking yourself, when are we going to get the news? When is it going to break? What's going on? Well, Q is telling you this is going to be a week to remember. As crazy as last week was, this coming week is going to be even more spectacular. So sit tight. And this is the last post by Q. It's just a link to a Judicial Watch page about Valerie Jarrett and her family's ties to communism. Here's the link, and here is the page. Judicial Watch, Corruption Chronicles. FBI files document the communism in Valerie Jarrett's family. You can go there and you can read that article if that is interesting to you. That is it for Q's posts. My wife just informed me that Q did post a little bit more, not on the regular page, but on a discussion forum. And evidently Q has been answering or confirming some things. I don't have information on that right now, but I will keep you up to date as Q posts more in the future. As always, thank you for hanging in with me. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for sharing this. My YouTube channel has been blowing up. I have never had the kind of traffic on my YouTube channel like I have doing these Q posts. People really like it. I'm getting a lot of good comments. I'm getting a lot of encouragement. So I will continue doing Q posts as long as Q is posting. Those of you who have decided to support me financially, I can't tell you how much it means. It does take a lot of time to do this research and to put these videos together. I appreciate your financial support. Love you all. Take care. This is Praying Medic. I'll catch you on the next broadcast.